Oh boy, folks, Tua Tagovailoa might officially be making noise at training camp, and it's not in the positive way. Tua might be doing an official hold, and we've talked about it in the past how he wasn't participating in team activities, but on day 2 of Dolphins training camp, he did not participate in any activities. He actually was not at practice at all. He was at the sidelines, but did not perform any drills. He didn't throw a single football, and it's not good. We got to talk about it. I am Nic Rohloff. This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports, and we are going to talk about all the news, highlights, and everything you need to know about training camp on day 2, as we are officially 2 days into Dolphins camp and practices. And before we get into the news and notes and more talk on Tua, make sure you have those notifications turned on. We have 57,217 subscribers, and only 8.6K of you guys have the noti bell turned on to all of our videos. 15.1%. And as more news, highlights, rumors come out of training camp, like the Tua Tagovailoa stuff, if you want to stay up to date and not miss a single thing, make sure those notifications are turned on, but also be subscribed so you don't miss a thing. All right, we've seen a lot of tweets, a lot of socials out there, but this is the one that stood out to me the most. Omar Kelly, who covers the Dolphins for the Miami Herald, said Tua did not work out today. He watched everything. No passes thrown on day 2. Many others had the same type of report, but I like the way Omar phrased this. No passes thrown on day 2. And I've often talked about in the past how this could be a disaster for the Dolphins. There's questions on if Tua deserves a long-term contract, what he deserves on an annual average basis, if he should be paid more than Jared Goff, paid the same as Trevor Lawrence. Like, I understand the positives and negatives to each type of argument here. But this is exactly what I feared. You simply cannot have this dark cloud hanging over this team. And I need, and I've said this multiple times, that with how the Dolphins schedule is scheduled out, it is much easier in the first 8-9 games than it is the final 10 games. And if you want to win the AFC East and win the division, have a home playoff game, you need to get off to a hot start in the early portion of the schedule where you play Jacksonville, Buffalo, and some other teams like Seattle, Arizona, Indianapolis, New England. Like, you need to win the majority of these games. And if the offense isn't fully in sync because Tua is not participating in practice for the first couple of weeks, this could be an absolute disaster. And then we've also had this link into other players. And Austin Jackson kind of brought this as a whole to me. They're not talking. Austin Jackson, when speaking to the media after practice, was asked about the Tua situation, how different it is with him not out there participating in practice and 11-on-11 and 7-on-7. And Jackson said, yeah, it's tough not having him out there, but in quotes, we're not really supposed to talk about that. Oh, brother, this is not good, folks. We got players being told not to talk about the Tua situation. Tua's not out there practicing on day 2. Like, this is the worst possible scenario for Miami. And I know some people in the comment section are just going to say, good, trade the bum. You can't do that. With this roster, who's going to play quarterback for this team? And they're going to need someone that is at least an average to above average quarterback to help lead this team to the postseason. And Tua, at least, at worst, is an average quarterback in the NFL. Barry Jackson had his own thoughts on this matter, and I completely agree with them. He says, I don't blame either side for this. But the practice some days, a little other days, none other days, seems counterproductive. Either Tua and the Finns should set a deadline and compromise to reach deal, or Dolphins should tell Tua they simply can't reconcile their money differences at this time, that they love him and ask him for his best work this year. Completely agree. I mean, I don't even know how much I could add on to that. Barry Jackson absolutely nailed it. You simply cannot continue going forward with the half participation, full participation, no participation. Either you're all in or you're not. Let's figure that out first. And what happens with Tua if Miami just comes to him and says, yeah, I know we're negotiating, but let's just table the discussions. We love you. We want you to ball out this year, and we want to pay you long term if you have another good season, but we can't do it right now. Is Tua just not going to play this year? Probably not, right? Like, he's in a contract year. He's going to play football. So to me, I'm done with the half in, half out situation. Like Barry Jackson said, either give Tua his money right now, which I think is the better decision, or tell him we're not going to do it at all before the season begins. So let's just play football and let's move forward. That's how I'm looking at it. But be honest with me. Does this Tua situation scare you? Y for yes, N for no. We've asked this question multiple times, but now it feels like it's really reaching the boiling point, if you will. So let me know your thoughts down below. Can't tell. Scares me for sure. I just don't want this team having quarterback issues as we progress here. This is an absolute disaster, and we need Dolphins football to have their quarterback at the helm moving forward. Now, there is a potential optimistic view on the Tagovailoa situation. Marcel, who covers the Dolphins for ESPN, said training camp practice wrapped up. Tua was present, did not practice. Jordan Poyer did individual position work, but not team drills. Kendall Fuller, Jonnu Smith, Calais Campbell, and Teron Armstead all DNP as well. And those aren't really injuries. Those are, rest days. Smith working through injuries, practice yesterday. Fuller just a rest day. Campbell just a rest day. Like, tabling the discussion with Tua, the final time we're talking about on today's show. But could this be a best case scenario to where, like, they just gave a couple veterans rest days? Like, that is my dream. That is my hope. I find it very unlikely that is the case. But maybe it was a rest day, man. Maybe it is. But I just would be shocked if they rested their quarterback on day 2. Like, it feels like that would be like a day 5 or day 6 thing, not day 2. So probably just being too optimistic here. But let's transition into the later portion of today's show, which is going to be day 2 practice notes on the Miami Dolphins. But prior to that, got to tell you about the best ticketing app in the game. That is GameTime, my favorite app to get tickets because they have so many different things for you. Zone deals, which allow you to save even more money when you choose a section and let GameTime choose the seats. They got last-minute deals for the lowest price guaranteed. And I think the 2 biggest things that I like the most, and I've said this prior on other shows, but this is how I like to view tickets. 1, I like to see the exact vantage point that I am going to be sitting at when I'm scrolling through tickets, which they have. But they also have all-in pricing, which allows you to see the actual price that you will be paying on your tickets rather than getting blindsided by fees at checkout. So when you combine those 2 things, GameTime's the perfect app to get your tickets, whether it's a Dolphins game, a Marlins game if you're a baseball fan, concert, comedy show. Does not matter. Wherever you are across the nation, GameTime will have tickets for you. And we have $20 off for you when you use code CHATSPORTS after downloading the app today. Go to your local app store, download the app. You see that little white G with the black box? It's perfect. Download it, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. First purchase only, but make sure you create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, the first thing that we need to talk about in terms of Dolphins practice on day 2, the defense dominated once again. And this is a standard thing that happens, I suppose. Like, every team's defense is always further along than the offense at the beginning of camp. But they dominated yesterday. They dominated today. And I said that I wasn't going to talk about Tua again in this video. Sorry, hand up. I lied. That wasn't a guarantee. Because it's kind of hard for your offense to get a real feel and see how they are going to be this season when your quarterback isn't participating in team drills. So when you're lining up your number 1 offense versus your number 1 defense and 11 on 11 and 7 on 7, but you have Mike White and Skylar Thompson throwing the rock, like, how are you supposed to know where you stand as an offense when your quarterback that is expected to be playing on Sundays every single week isn't out there participating? It just isn't a good look for your offense. But let's talk about why the defense dominated and some standouts. We got to talk about the first-round pick, Chop Robinson. Didn't really provide an update on him from day 1 yesterday, but in day 2 we got one because he had a sack for the second straight day. It was shared that he got to the quarterback alongside another edge rusher. I think it was Cam who got there, and he had a sack yesterday. So the first-round pick out of Penn State has been terrific through 2 days of training camp. He has been beating offensive linemen with his speed and first quick step, which was his calling card at Penn State because he's an athletic freak and had one of the craziest first steps and 40-yard dashes for edge rusher that we've ever seen. Travis, coming in here with another update, said that he's been very impressed with Jordyn Brooks and Anthony Walker at linebacker through 2 days. They fed off each other really well, and there was production in both the run and pass game. Remember, those two are replacing Van Ginkel, Jerome Baker, and David Long Jr. is right now on the PUP list, so Jordyn Brooks and Anthony Walker Jr. are your top 2 linebackers. Wingfield also added that Kader Kohou had 2 really nice PBUs on the day, and he's going to have much more on this and player audio on his pod, so go check him out if you haven't already. But the takeaways that I want to talk about here, I love hearing that Kader Kohou is playing well in the nickel because as a UDFA in 2022, he flashed on the scene. Darth Kader, he was terrific. But in 2023, he kind of came back to earth a little bit and struggled. So for the Dolphins secondary and defense to be elite and a stalwart and be one of the best groups in the NFL, you're going to need the third-year corner to step back up and bounce back from a down year in 2023. You have 2 elite corners on the outside in Jalen Ramsey and Kendall Fuller, but can Kader be a lockdown nickel corner? Had a good day on day 2, which was good to hear. And you've been with the channel. I would have told you that I expect a lot out of Anthony Walker Jr. and Jordyn Brooks. So I am not surprised to hear that those two have been playing really well. Walker's excellent in coverage. Brooks is an excellent downhill linebacker who stops the run. Those two are going to work really well with each other, and they're also very, very athletic. Marcel also added this, that Emmanuel Ogbah, after being signed just a couple days ago, not new to this, he repped the orange jersey today, which means he was a standout from yesterday's practice, and then he had a very good practice again, sensational so far. I've been reading everything and hearing everything out of practice. Ogbah's been in the opposing backfield nonstop in team drills. Obviously, nothing crazy in terms of pads just yet, but when the pad's off, Ogbah's been dominating, getting in the backfield quite a bit. And that's great to hear because with Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb still on the PUP list, Ogbah's taking that charge as the lead edge, mentoring Chop Robinson, Mo Kamara. It's good to see him return back to the 305 after being in free agency so long. And I think he's going to have a big-time bounce-back year in this Anthony Weaver defense after a couple down years in Miami and last year under Vic Fangio. Before we get to some of the offensive notes and close out today's show, just give me your thoughts on the defense so far. You've seen 2 days of practice thus far, and we've seen dominant performances on the pass rush department and the secondary. Just drop your thoughts down in the comment section on the defense. Before we do get to the offense, though, I did want to provide a little bit of an update on Javon Holland because we talked about an injury scare yesterday after he collided with Malik Washington in 11-on-11s. Javon Holland's okay. You saw the tweet earlier about players that did not participate in practice today. Javon Holland's name was not on that list. So even though he left in yesterday's game or practice with an injury and didn't return, he's back on the field today, and he's looking pretty good. All right, some offensive notes before we get out of here. Quarterback talk. Up and down day for Mike White. Had a couple nice throws. There was a good throw that he had to Aelc Ingold for a touchdown, which was number 5 as well. Fullback making a deep touchdown grab in 11-on-11s, but he also threw another interception. So Mike White's turned the ball over at times, but also had a couple nice throws. Skylar Thompson was okay. Nothing stood out for him, but he did have a absolute dime to Tyreek Hill when he was being defended by Ethan Bonner to end practice. So Skylar showcasing why he's still on this roster after being a 7th-round pick a couple of years ago. Tyreek is Tyreek, best wide receiver in football, dominated practice for as much as he can without Tua at quarterback. And I also heard that Jaylen Waddle was quite impressive with a couple nice catches over the middle of the field. I think the Dolphins have the best wide receiver core in the NFL. I think they have the best wide receiver duo in the NFL with Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I think those two are going to be sensational this year again. And when this Dolphins offense hopefully has the right quarterback at the helm in Tua, and they're fully healthy out there on Sundays, they're going to be quite dominant. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. If you want more news, highlights, notes on Dolphins Training Camp, my Twitter is the one place that you can find it. We can't show video on here, but you can find video over on my Twitter, at Nic_Rohloff's the handle. As always, Fins fans, I'll see you tomorrow with another video.